Hello, everyone. Hello, EP2. I hope you're doing very well. We are entering the final third of our semester. It's all been very exciting stuff, to be honest. Very exciting stuff. And as we move along with it, uh, We've gone from actually from songs to games to storytelling, and then we'll move on to role playing as well. But this we start with role playing, and we talked about it last week actually. This week we'll actually talk a bit more about the practicalities of it and what we can expect from you for this section of the class. All right, things so far. Progress on grading the song lessons is slower than anticipated. There's a lot of them, and some of them are a bit long. It takes time. So the peer feedback project is going to be delayed. I'm piloting it with another class right now, so I'm testing it out with another class because using Discord as for the group discussions, and I need to make sure it can work with a larger group of students before I actually try it out. So, but it will happen. I'm very excited and encouraged by what I'm seeing so far with the other class. But I need to make sure I want to keep it focused so it can be streamlined and go easier for everyone. So on to storytelling. Last week we discussed the elements of telling a story well, about making it work, about how to engage the students, how to make things interesting so they keep watching, they keep listening, to maintain your retention rate with your audience. Talk about having strong voice, poised, your enthusiasm. If it's quite important to be enthusiastic in your lessons as well as your storytelling, because again, if you don't care, why should they care? Visuals, whether it be gestures or acting or different sound effects with your voice, or it's not visuals, of course, but things to keep them engaged. Then also the comprehension check questions to make sure that students are following along, both in paying attention, but also that they're understanding the story. That's quite helpful. So this week, I have two example videos of storytelling. One is more traditional, as in it's me reading from a book on my computer, and that's it. And there you go. It's a fun story, though. It rhymes. The other is an adaptation of a story. And you'll see it when you see it, of why it's the Three Little Penguins instead of the Three Little Pigs. I had to change the story slightly due to real-world logistics, which is perfectly fine to do. You can do that. And I use more visuals in that story. And I think it's helpful for you to see different examples. We had the example last week from the television show Reading Rainbow, which was also helpful. I used to watch that TV show when I was young. It helped me. So seeing these different examples is helpful for you because you're going to have a presentation, a video presentation of you telling a story. I think this will be our last presentation. I think. I'm 90% sure. This will be quite short, though. You're going to make a video telling a story. You will choose your own story to tell and how to tell it. So you're reading a story, you're telling the story, you're doing, that's what you're doing. This is not a complete lesson. This is the storytelling section. That's what you're doing. You're telling the story to the students, not teaching the whole lesson. We're trying to focus more on that. So we're going to practice our presentation skills in this project. Your pronunciation, your poise, your energy, your enthusiasm, presentation skills, your visuals, your acting, your gestures, all these parts of the acting part, the showman part of teaching. That's what we're exercising with this project. This sounds a bit terrible, not the teaching part, but the entertainment part. Teachers, for good or ill, have always been entertainers in a way. And we need to exercise those skills as well, because the more entertaining, the more engaging you are as a teacher, the better for your students to actually listen, pay attention, and retain and learn from you. So that's why we're going to focus on these skills. Your story will need to be appropriate for your students. So they also think how long your story should be. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, probably not the best story to tell for this video. It'll be too long. But you can find shorter stories, and both stories that I chose, they were 5 to 6 minutes, nothing too long. But it's just telling the story, but also engaging the students. And I use different methods in the two examples. One, where the more traditional method, storytelling, is I use comprehension check questions. I'm trying to engage with the students more on an intellectual, active manner. The second is just more visual. It's a more prepared video lesson. So there we go. All right. And for this, I want you to find a story that is appropriate and suitable for third grade, high beginner students. Third grade. So nothing too scary, nothing too babyish either. Third graders, the younger kids, are very sensitive about things that they deem to be babyish. Last night, I was in Emart Traders. This is an example. And this little boy, he was probably 3 or 4 years old. He had not started school yet. He was tiny. And he was looking at the cereal aisle. And he's like, oh. He was looking and he found the checks, the chocolate checks. And he's like, oh, when I was little, I used to like this. But now I like the Oreos more. This boy, because he had matured and become older, the chocolate checks were for babies. Oreos were for big boys. And when you're at that age, you're very sensitive about things. So to this boy, and he wasn't talking to anyone. He was talking to himself. He was justifying himself about what he used to like, and what he likes now, and a sign of time and maturity. He now likes the Oreos and cereal, even though he remembers liking the chocolate checks. But he's a big boy now, and he's gonna like the Oreos. Children are very sensitive about age and seniority, far more than adults are. And so it's something to be aware of. So don't choose something too babyish for your children, even if you think it's very cute. Or if you do, how can you punch it up a bit and make it more appropriate, more challenging, more intellectually stimulating for your students? Something to bear in mind. Think about what methods you want to utilize for engaging your students and keeping them interested in your story as you tell it. Are you going to be actively asking questions? Are you going to be very over the top in your delivery style? It's your choice. But I want you to think about what's effective for you and what are you comfortable with. Something I want you to try to work on, all of you, is your voice delivery. How are you talking? How are you presenting your voice? Is there enough variation in your pitch and cadence to show that you're interested? A lot of us, last year especially, we're very flat in our English delivery because you were uncomfortable with it, and it's no crime. And so far this year, looking at your video lessons for songs, there's a big improvement. But with the storytelling presentation, it is your presentation skills that are most important. Your content is less important. I want you to work on making it pretty, as in your voice, your demeanor, your presentation skills, the visuals. And so keeping the students engaged, that's what it is. So you're not making a lesson plan for this. We are just, do not make an activity for this. Just the story and engaging students. That's what you're doing. Story and keeping students engaged. That's what you're doing. Hello. This is a reading of Mr. McKay, The Winter Coat Thief by John Harrison. This is an example reading. We're going to read together this story and we'll see how it goes. There's another example, of course, but this is one of them. Let's get started, shall we? Mr. McKay, The Winter Coat Thief, written by Daniel Eroko, illustrated by Michiko Kayas. Mr. McKay is a fellow most strange. His hair and his mustache will magically change. He doesn't like dogs or other such beast, and he steals all the napkins from the picnic feast. You'll know that's him from his lemon-line eyes, unless he's wearing his sunglass disguise. Of course you could tell by his grassy green pants. They're made in the fall by a team of red ants. He lives in an igloo, which makes little sense, while two pet iguanas sleep outside in tents. In the morning he climbs up the dewy dug trees, then lays on the grass where he talks to the bees. In winter is when you must keep a keen eye to see if he's lurking or skipping nearby. For he'll take both his hands and rub them together. He does it quite fast, since they're light as a feather. Have you ever done that before? He heats up the air, and he sends it your way, making you think it's an oddly warm day. But I warn you, my friends, do not fall for his ploy. He's after your coat in a manner quite coy. If you do take it off, he will rustle the leaves. You'll put down your coat and look up at the trees. And that's when he grabs it, that winter coat thief, before you can notice the drop of one leaf. So it's best in the winter to leave your coat on, or else, when you'll need it, you'll find that it's gone. Wow, isn't that a fun little story about where our winter coats go when we take them off outside? That's fun. Have you ever lost a winter coat? Yes. When I was in elementary school, yes, I lost them pretty, not often, but often enough to get my mother angry. I lived in California. It gets warm, and you take it off and you forget. So, in this story, what does the story do? It helps explain something. What does it help explain? Right, it explains who is taking all of our coats on winter days when we take them off. Now, this guy, does Mr. McKay, does he sound like a good guy or a bad guy? Right. He's a little bad guy. He's not very bad. He's a little bit bad. A little bit bad. Yeah, that's fine. Where does Mr. McKay live? What kind of house does he live in? Yes, that's right. He lives in an igloo. Right. Where do people usually live in igloos? Do people in Korea live in igloos? No, that'd be unusual. People in America, not usually. You have to go very far north, past, up north, up closer to where polar bears are and everything, where it's ice all around. And even then, igloos, yeah, they're something else. So they're especially wind shelters. But wait a minute. Hold on. What are igloos made out of? They're ice, right? Ice. So igloos don't work in most places. It's too warm. An igloo would not work in Korea most of the year. It's not a good house idea. But you can see he has a satellite. He's got Skylife TV. So that's pretty fun. What else does Mr. McKay take? He takes lots of things, actually. Not just winter coats, so that's the big ticket item. He also steals napkins. Sometimes when you're going to have a picnic or barbecue outside and you thought You had napkins? Well, you don't? It's because Mr. McKay is taking them all. He's not a nice guy. The Three Little Penguins, told by John Harrison. Narrated by John Harrison. A long time ago, there were three little brother penguins. One wore pink, one wore blue, and another was too busy to wear clothes. The brothers who wore pink and blue loved to dance and sing and avoid work all day, but not their third brother. The penguin who wore pink built a house made out of paper. Very weak house, but it was good enough. Now the brother who wore blue, he was a little bit less lazy than his brother who wore pink, and he built his house out of cardboard. He even built a door as well. But he was still lazy, and this was not a strong house. And the third brother, who was not lazy at all, he worked very hard to build his house, very hard indeed. He studied hard, he studied chemistry, engineering, and he built his house out of hard plastic, a very strong material indeed. One day, a wild Kirby was walking through the forest, looking around for something to eat, because he was very hungry. As we all know, Kirbys are always hungry. And so he came across the Pink Penguin's paper house. So he went looking for its owner. Meanwhile, the Pink Penguin was dancing and playing and having a good time, but then the Kirby found him. "Hello," said Kirby. "I want to eat you." "You what?" And the Pink Penguin ran all the way back home. So the Kirby came to the Pink Penguin's house, and he wanted inside. So he said, little penguin, please let me in." "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin," said the penguin. So Kirby said, "I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." It's blown up, and the Kirby chased the poor Pink Penguin all around the forest, all over the hills and dales, all around, until he came to his brother's house, who was sleeping. And being a nice brother, he let Pink in. But Kirby was not far behind. He came to the second brother's house and said, little penguins, please let me in." But the penguins did not want him in. Not by the hair of their chinny chin chins, they said. So Kirby said, "And I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." And so the two lazy brothers were chased by the Kirby, the very hungry Kirby, and it was a hard chase over valleys and rivers and over a frozen lake apparently. And they ran and they ran and they ran to their third brother's house. And the brothers came running to their third brother, begging to be let into his big house. A very strong house. And being a good brother, he agreed. But the Kirby was not far behind, and came to the third penguin's house, and he asked once again, little penguins, please let me."
"Not by the hair of chinny chin chin."
"Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." One more time.
me.
So the Kirby had the idea to go onto the roof of the house and go down the chimney. But the third penguin, who was very smart and diligent, he had already thought of that, and he built a fire. And so when the Kirby went down, pop, he came back up again, and he was on fire himself, and he ran and ran and ran. And just like that, the Penguin brothers were safe again, thanks to the hard work, intelligence, and diligence of the third non-clothes-wearing brother. And so the Penguin brothers danced and sang and fell over and danced some more, and a good time was had by all, as usually brothers do. But the pink and blue-wearing brothers, they agreed to work harder, to study more, so they would never fall for the traps of a Kirby ever again. And they never, ever did. The end. Thank you for watching this adaptation of The Three Little Pigs by John Harrison.